Hello, FewCandy here, and welcome back to Solitude, and I really hope you enjoyed the beachfront build last time out. These realistic functional beach assets are honestly incredible, and I know quite a few of you said you've had problems with traffic when you put them in. All I can say is I haven't had that kind of issue since I reduced the number of spawn points using Bob, so I'd really recommend doing that if you're having trouble with traffic. Or as well, the asset maker did say that you do need pretty balanced services, so lots of unique buildings throughout your city and different things for tourists to do. Otherwise they are just going to flock here, like they did here, because we've got very little in this city so far. But for today we're going to focus on building out the rest of our beachfront and our town centre. And we are yet to give it a name, so do keep your name suggestions coming in for this area. But before we do anything today, there is one thing I do want to point out, and that is this amazing flag by Terry Tags. Thank you so much for this, Terry. I absolutely love it. It's so nice to have the flag of Solitude flying proudly on our beachfront there. And we have also put one over by the ferry terminal as well. So yeah, really, really lovely touch. Thank you so much for designing and making that for us, Terry. But also, before we build anything else, we have got a whole bunch of warning signs here. So we've got not enough workers. Of course, we've got huge residential demand. So we will be coming in and fulfilling quite a bit of that today with some lovely beachfront condos and some more residential around the town centre. But we've also got a lot of death. And one thing I realised is that in our whole busy town centre here, we have not put in any health, fire or police services. We did put in a nice post office and a little bank over here, but that doesn't really meet the citizens' needs. So before we do anything, let's place in some of those. So I'm thinking with medical, what I would like is actually quite a big facility over here. So I think we will go for a hospital, and it may decimate our income a little bit, but we're doing okay for the moment, so I think it'll be fine. But the main vanilla big hospitals are just a little bit too big for here. Like if we place them in, you see they're almost as big as our little towers over there, so I don't really want this, nor this one, which is absolutely massive. So I'm thinking actually what I'm going to go for is the modern Japan hospital, and it does slot in quite nicely on this corner. Like, it is just a shame that it's got the Japanese writing on it, but we've got an opportunity to do some nice back entrance detailing around the back here, a little bit of surface painter, maybe some extra car parking spaces, but I think it ties in quite nicely. And just to help that along this road as well, let's ban parking from this segment here. And we'll also actually do it up the side here so that no one's like parking immediately outside those hospital zone entrances. Now with fire, if we go to coverage, you'll see like we're all right over there with our fire station. It's not too bad this side, but we haven't got anything here. We're going to be putting lots of condos up the beachfront this side too. So I'm thinking actually this is quite a good central location right here, actually on the corner by the metro station for our little firehouse. And I am actually just going to go for the bog standard vanilla one for this. I don't think there's any problem with that. I think it fits in quite nicely. There's quite a few modern buildings around in this area, so yeah, that will do nicely for there. And then with police, again, the coverage is very similar. Like, we're okay round in Bradley Stantonville, but not so much here. So I'm actually thinking with the police is I think we could get away with using the African Police Department along the beachfront here. I think it might be quite a nice touch. So I'm wondering if actually down here by the metro station might be alright, because then we kind of get this nice, like, this is almost centralised with the metro station here. Little walk through the police station into the little backyard that we have there. So I'm quite enjoying that actually, and I think it does make quite a nice feature on the waterfront, particularly with the palms in the middle of it and where we've got the tram road here, which doesn't have the palms lining it like the rest of it. I think that they look quite nice. So yeah, I think we'll integrate that one there. Now death care, obviously we need quite a bit of death care. Now I do have a couple of assets downloaded from the workshop for this. So we have got this PNW community church, which is very cute, but it kind of fits a little bit more outside of the city centre. So I was actually thinking potentially this little space here might suit this. And what we can do here is actually fit in a very small graveyard next to it. So I'm thinking if we place in the graveyard like that, and obviously this needs some detailing around it. And then we come to our asphalt rural road and we just bring out a small segment like this. We should be able to fit in this little church behind it, which I think will sit quite nicely here actually. It is very close to the rail, but I'm kind of okay with that. I think what I will do actually is delete out this little bit For the sake of helping our citizens get around a little bit more easily, let's just use one segment of road here and we'll bend it out like so that the nodes aren't too close together. We'll move up the graveyard relatively close to it, and we just need a bit of graveyard detailing around it essentially. But yeah, I think it fits in okay. We could even potentially spin it this way. That maybe feels a little bit more appropriate. Then we could bring it up to the edge of the road, potentially add a couple of parking spaces in around it, but we'll come back to detailing that later on. But that'll give us a bit more death care around this town centre, and I'm thinking we probably want something over this side as well. So we could potentially fit in a cryopreservatory somewhere here. But it would go too amiss. I'm going to place it in there for now. We may move that around as we put in some of the residential around it. So next up, what I would like to do is take a look at our transit, because I know a load of you commented about how many people were waiting on our little tiny mini bus stops in some locations. Yeah, like this is a bit ridiculous. Like if we take a little look at the line, you can see there's a massive 300 people waiting there and 100 people here. Now the interesting thing is most of them are literally going from this stop here to this stop here, which is like basically across the road. Oh, I just want to point out this amazing little bus stop asset as well. Absolutely love it. The people are literally going from here to here, which frankly is quite lazy. Like they could just walk. But what we do need to do is add in some more bus lines and probably some larger vehicles on this particular bus line than just the mini buses. They only have a capacity of 20, so we could definitely use some bigger buses to get more people on and getting them backwards and forwards between these two stops ultimately. Now I just also want to say that most of our transport is tourists and they're all taking the tram, clearly from the station where they're coming in or from the international bus station. Round to the beachfront is most of it, and also down to here, down to this side as well. We get quite a few people stopping off at this stop and then walking across the beach. I see a few of them around there as well, but yeah, it's mostly busy around this stop here and around the beachfront. But the trams, let's take a little quicker look at that first, because I don't think that needs too much. So there's a few people waiting, obviously, by the station, but that clears pretty quickly. Like, we are on 51% of the recommended trams for the length of this line, but, like, frankly, most of the line doesn't really need it. But I think what we could do, and where's the other busy stop? Yeah, both of the stops by the station are extremely busy. But what we could do is add in a couple more trams just to help them out. But what we certainly could do is add in a couple more trams just to help them out. So let's actually just increase this by 2 up to 8. I think it would be suitable. I'm loath to increase the capacity at the moment just because it's not a ridiculous amount of people waiting. Like this one's pretty empty coming up to this stop. Same here. Like we've already got several on the line already coming up to this one. So yeah, and I don't want massive trams running around this area either. Like these are already quite large, I think, for this small town. So I think that'll be fine. Now on buses, our line is currently coming from the international bus station through the main part of the town centre and then out into these areas. But as I said, the main part of the route that they're using is just a stop between here and there, which is very interesting indeed. I think it's the people from this area getting to the high school and getting to the park areas. So we'll help them out by putting in some more park areas down here, maybe a little bit closer, which might reduce some of the demand on that particular bus line, but we will see. But I think for this one, let's change the vehicle on this. So we've got a couple of choices here. We could just go up to the 30 capacity bus, which is probably really what I want to do. I don't want massive double deckers or articulated buses really going around here. So that's kind of the closest option we've got. So let's just do that and we'll increase it a little bit. Let's of course change the colour as well. Let's go for green because it's the Bradley Stanton district. And just checking here as well, I haven't actually reduced the number of buses here. So I'm wondering if this will help. Like we've got 9 buses on the line, which feels like plenty. I usually reduce the number of buses quite substantially, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm thinking as well, let's add in another bus line. And this one I probably will just use the mini buses for, but to help give people some different options here too. So we'll start again at our bus station over here, which makes the most sense to me. And I think from there, what we are going to do, now I kind of wanted to avoid this roundabout, but I think unfortunately it probably is unavoidable in this situation. So we'll just come out to here, and what we're going to do is, because it's the minibus line, we're going to send this through the more rural areas here. So we haven't got a bus line headed through here, so I think let's have a couple of stops in that area. We'll have one down by the main road here, and then I think we will continue to cut along this road so we can come out in front of maybe the shops here. Might be quite nice. And that also gives them pretty decent access to the farm there. And we could come through the farm potentially, although that will cause traffic because on these rural roads it just stops on the road rather than sort of pulling off into a lay-by, so it's not ideal. So I think we will continue to just bring it up to here outside the shops. And then actually by doing this, it's not on the same side of the road as the green line, so we actually shouldn't get too much crossover there, which will be good. So let's stop it here, stop it again down there, and then we'll come back and follow this line back in. Like this. So they have got a few options to get around. Now it's not particularly easy for them to cross onto this green line. So I'm actually wondering if we should move this stop so it's actually there. Which still gives them pretty decent access. There's one there and then one right here. So I think they're close enough to stop so they'll be happy there. And then citizens can just cross through this park. So let's help them out again by adding in an extra pathway here. We'll just grab our gravel pathway and bring one in to meet this path like that so that they can then walk from this bus stop essentially and get down to here if they wanted to change lines there. So let's go and find our second line here, and I am going to put the minibus on. I really want the minibuses running around those rural roads. I just think it's so much more appropriate. If we'll go for a white line there and see how that goes. How many buses do we have on it? 2 at the moment. We're going to have 9 again, so yeah, we'll take a little bit of a look later on in the episode and see how that is doing. And we've got some serious problems with all of the buses spawning in at once right here. I also do not like the parking along this road. I think that's completely inappropriate. So instead of banning parking with Traffic Manager, I'm going to come in and use the no parking wider sidewalk roads here just to stop people from parking right outside the bus station. That doesn't work for me. Okay, so coming on to the first build for today, and we are going to build out in this little block here a kind of travelling fair type thing, because I'm thinking like it's beachfronty tourists. I think a fair might come to a little plaza like this, so I'm thinking it's ordinarily maybe a garden. I haven't quite decided on the surface yet. I'm going to see when I put the assets in. It could be a plaza or a garden, very open community style space. But right now, in Solitude, there's a fair has arrived and is travelling here to entertain the tourists. So of course we're going to use the amusement park assets for this, and what we are going to do, we're not going to create a park area or anything in here like that. We're just very simply going to plop down a few of the assets in here. So I'm thinking definitely like the Ferris wheel would be quite a key part of this, potentially somewhere in the centre. Maybe like that, as long as we can get road access, that's the only key thing. And of course we'll want things like a carousel. We'll also want like little teacup rides around the place. Lots of food truck stalls will be used to decorate this. Piggy train for sure. I love that asset. Dodgems as well is a great asset here. Let's include that. And for sure a little pirate boat. Now with all of these, let's get Bob out. We definitely don't want the tiles. As always, I am going to remove these. So we're literally just going to remove them entirely, remove the probability to 0, and actually I'm going to do that across all props of this type in all buildings. If we say that, remove to 0 and click tick, they're all gone. Thank goodness. So I think that's the way that we should do it. And so of course the thing to consider now is the surface. Like I'm thinking potentially touches of ruin. So if we use Surface Painter to remove all of this concrete surface, we'll have touches of ruined around mixed in with grass. I think might be quite nice here. Because I think ordinarily this space would probably be grassed in when the fair hasn't come to town. And of course we're using the amusement park assets here, which are from the Park Life DLC. One of the best DLCs you can pick up if you haven't already got it, with all of the fences and the paths and all of the park assets that it offers actually, which can be placed anywhere outside of parks as well. Very, very useful assets indeed. If you haven't already got this, please do consider using my instant gaming link in the description below, which has the DLCs alongside a whole host of other games at really great prices and does also help to support the channel. So after much debate on the Surface Painter, I did end up deciding to go for concrete and pavement the whole thing in. I think that was the easiest thing and it made the most sense for a town centre area like this. I think the fiddliest thing with this area was really piecing in all of the assets. I wanted it to feel quite crowded and a little bit higgledy-piggledy, like there's no kind of one clear pathway through it, which is what like some of these travelling fairs that I've been to in the past have very much felt like there's no kind of uniformity to it a lot of the time. It's all sort of, hey, where can I fit this in? Let's put it in there. So I think we achieved that with this. It's definitely crammed in to this little tiny space. And the final kind of touches to it was really adding a few more food trucks, some benches, some little balloon and candy floss carts from the amusement park prop pack. And I also decided to fence in the area and add some palm trees around because I feel like it would have something in this area when the fair wasn't here. So I think that helped to kind of settle it in quite well. Okay, so let's move on to filling in the residential finally and trying to get rid of some of these worker demands that we are finding over here. Now, I'm thinking along this waterfront, what I would like is some kind of like beach condos, slightly nicer looking actually than the high density residential we've got over by the station over there. So I'm actually thinking of using the Hearts of Korea assets for this, although it is low density residential, so it's not going to boost our population tremendously. But I think some of these assets will go in really nicely as kind of beachfront condo type blocks. So what we are going to do here is just go through and piece a few of these together. Now there is one asset which has a really nice like curvy bottom corner to it, this one, which I definitely want on corners like this where we can place it. And of course we're going to have to use a bit of Move It to get these all into place because I want these kind of wall to wall pretty much along the beachfront here, maybe a couple of little alleyways through to the back. And these two go really nicely together with the brickwork on the front, so I'm actually just going to hide the bin there. We'll just fuse it in and get rid of that bin, just so they're nicely aligned to the front there, and I think that makes quite a nice block. I don't really want too many repeated patterns in this. I think having some variation in the condos up front would be nice, and I definitely want to keep quite a nice, wide, deep pavement here. That's why I'm kind of sinking them back a little bit against the road, just to give a bit of extra space in this. Something like this has the car park, so I'm wondering if actually we maybe split these up a little bit and we can go for an alleyway through the middle, and we could potentially even add a very small 1x1 in here. Dare I say it? It's a 1x2 actually, there we go. We could go away with that. And just piece these together so that we're getting a really nice waterfront here. Yeah, this is definitely the type of vibe that I want along here, like looking out to the beach. I think they've got quite nice views because this will be pretty rural up over the mountains this side as well. We'll have a few houses dotted around, but it will be quite a nice view there. So I think that these should be nice apartments, or nice looking apartments at least, like these. So we'll just keep coming in and piecing these along the waterfront. So something like that, and then we will come in down the back here, and I'll probably adjust this road so that it turns into car parking behind these condos and bring it in some extra, slightly smaller in height, I think, condos behind. Maybe go back to some of the vanilla high density residential for that. And then over here, what I would like to do is start to introduce actually some of the tourism hotels, because we didn't really use too many of them last time, and I think a little bit of extra height over the waterfront this side is fine. Like, that's the sort of older waterfront, and this is where some of the rich people have come in, or the holiday makers, and built up a little bit for their hotel areas around here. That's what I'm kind of imagining for this. So I don't want anything super duper duper tall, so I'm thinking something like Bulky Gold Beach. Yeah, nice asset there. We can do a bit of detailing around it to turn it more into a resort, and we could even do a little bit of fusing here. Spin this around and just merge this in. Something like that. And the windows aren't too bad around all of it there, so I don't mind that too much. We do, of course, want to come in and make sure that these are the same colour. I don't know if I'm loving the green, to be honest. I think we might go for a yellow there. Well, actually, the white's nicer. Got a lot of white buildings around here. Yeah, there we go. So it kind of all merges in together and feels a bit more like one asset there, so I don't mind that. And of course, we'll bring in some pools, etc. behind it and the detailing in a second. This one's a little bit tall. We're getting a bit too built up, I think, with those here, particularly that one as well. Maybe even that one. It's like this is a little bit more appropriate, these sort of smaller hotels. And alongside these, I think we can merge it in with a little bit more high density residential too. So let's perhaps just move this up relatively close to the police station there. We'll leave a little gap because of obviously that corridor through the middle of it there. Kind of give this one its own complex. And move this over, and then we could kind of slot in some of the smaller buildings in the middle of it too, so like maybe a little souvenir shop sort of sits nicely between the hotel here and this apartment complex, and potentially like a nightclub the other side. Now, I'm not loving the blue on this one again, so let's go through and reset that. I think the white is a little bit nicer there. So if we just step back and take a little look at what we've got there, you can see it's relatively built up round there, which is kind of what I wanted. Like, the main town centre is actually lower than this sort of almost tourist strip down this side. Sort of luxury apartments and hotel complexes, but that is exactly what I wanted. So it feels very much like this is the old town centre and the original area, which is relatively low in height, and this is where they've started to knock things down and build up. Extend out of the original town. Now, just coming onto some of the residential on the outskirts as well, because there are some assets that I do want to use for that. And that is this PBS residential pack by Thomas. And these are some really nice assets, which I think fit in quite well to like a sort of slightly more modern suburban area, like what we're going to have around here. Like, we need to do some detailing around them, but they're super duper nice assets, and we can kind of pack these into little grids here, and I think it will work really, really nicely. So before we actually started detailing up this area, I did go through and place in all of the other buildings in this little kind of modern build residential neighbourhood on the outskirts of the town centre, and also through the back roads behind the big condos that we put on the waterfront. So when I was doing this, I was constantly like trying to think about walkability as well, and adding in pathways where we knew that we could, so that would be good places for people to get around, again trying to minimise the traffic, which I think will eventually happen in this city. And you'll see me here painting in fertile land, which was actually an idea that came from a viewer, and I couldn't find the comment, so sincere apologies if it was you. Shout me out in the comments now and I will give you a shout out in the next episode. But a viewer mentioned that you could paint over the beach with one of the industry textures, and actually that would get rid of the grass sprites. Such a good shout. So I did that here so that the grass sprites weren't pointing through all of the different patios in these assets. Very, very useful indeed. And of course, in amongst all of these houses, we placed quite a few little parks. I've mainly used my tiny little 3x2 park that I've made myself because it fits into very small spaces very nicely. Of course, with a bit of bob work to make it nice and tropical and put in our relevant trees for it. I had a lot of debate about the little commercial strip that we put in this area, and I eventually changed it up actually to the strip mall from the shopping plaza's DLC, because I think that was slightly more appropriate for this area. But I also have Game Anarchy on, so we don't have unique, so I can use this multiple times throughout Solitude, which is very handy indeed. And unlike the other small suburban area that we put in, our first area that we put into Solitude, this one is a little bit more built up. Like, it's a modern developed area, which is why I'm focusing on just using the plain vanilla roads. I'd probably swap them out for some unmarked suburban roads when I remember to get them from the workshop again. Just so that we don't have the like dotted lines in the middle and all the arrows on it. I think it's a bit cleaner and nicer for these suburban districts like this without that. So we'll definitely be picking up those. But the rest of the detailing is very much about making sure Surface Painter is aligned around all of the buildings, adding in a few little prop areas for shade and little garden areas, green areas in amongst all of the residential that we have. I wanted to make sure as well that we left enough green space in here because the rest of the town centre is very concretey, and I wanted to have some of the green from the jungle spilling down into the outskirts of this town centre. So you'll see a lot of those when we come to do the detailing. And then also some nice street front detailing, as well as what I think is probably my favourite part of this build, but I'll leave it as a surprise. A yard for a hotel? We'll come on to that. So there we have another episode of Solitude, and our population has increased to 5,500, I think it is now. So more than doubled over the course of this episode, which is great to see. We've made sure we've got in services and parks around the place to keep residents happy and keep their buildings levelling up, bringing in more citizens as well. So I think really from this town centre it is time to kind of extend up into the hills and get some more luxury style mansions overlooking the town. But we've also got some rice fields and favela style districts to put into the mountains around the farm as well as detailing out the rest of this beachfront in front of our build today, which we will do on a live stream very, very soon. But if you have enjoyed this episode, likes, comments and shares are really greatly appreciated, and keep your name suggestions coming in for this town and we will name it next time. But that's all from me for now, so thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you again next time. Bye bye.